This is a presentation that was given to the annual general meeting of Food4Macc in March 2011. We got started back in April 19th, 2009 when we read this article by John Paul Flintoff in the Sunday Times, drawing attention to the facts of peak oil and its effect on food supplies. And that introduced us to the work of Rob Hopkins and also the Transition Network. We had a look around the local area to see how many, if anybody was interested in transition, and we found that there were a number of organisations in Bollington, Buxton and Leek, and Debbie and her friends Melanie and Karen went to visit both Transition Leek and the incredible Edible Todmorden, and they were quite inspired by what was being done there. Having looked at the objectives of the Transition Network, we realised that it was quite a big job, and not feeling quite up to that challenge at that stage, we decided to focus on local food. So we set up Food4Macc with these objectives: increasing public awareness, increase local production of food, to stimulate the demand for locally produced food, and to find support for this work. So the purpose of this talk really is to go over how we've achieved those objectives. One of the first things we did was to set up a Food4Macc website, which gives quite a lot of background information on local food growing. We're very grateful to Sally, who came up with this logo for Food4Macc, which has been very successful and adopted on lots of other of our publicity. We put quite a bit of work into getting publicity in the local press. This was the Macclesfield Express. We had a few weeks display in the foyer of the public library in Macclesfield, and we also got quite a bit of publicity from local radio stations who did interviews with Deb. We went to some fairly extreme lengths to get publicity. This included dressing up as carrots in the summer Barnaby parade through the centre of Macclesfield. We attended various stands at exhibitions, open days, garden parties, and especially the treacle market, which has been a very successful new market opened in Macclesfield, concentrating on local food and local produce. We've been invited to talk to a lot of local groups, both of the Macclesfield Rotary groups, the Macclesfield Guild and Chamber of Trade, the WI, and also found ourselves being regarded as experts by new transition town movements starting up in the area, including Transition Wilmslow and Low Carbon Lim, where in both cases we've been asked to speak to the meetings. We introduced ourselves to the local National Farmers Union, and they invited us to speak to their annual general meeting of the local branch. Sounds rather grand, but actually there were only about a dozen people there, but they were influential people, and I think that's helped our contacts with the local farming community. CVS is the Cheshire East Volunteer Service, and they've been very helpful both in finding volunteers for us and also advising us on things like the constitution of the organisation. In particular, we didn't want to spend a lot of our initial energy on sorting out the constitution, so they were helpful in pointing us to a fairly ready-made constitution. Cheshire Peaks and Plains is a local housing trust, and they've been they allowed us to speak to their residents' conference just a few weeks ago. They're obviously quite keen to get more community involvement from their residents. In terms of increasing local production of food, we've set up 6 community gardens in local schools, care homes, and one in a truly community garden in Bollington. The next thing we're hoping to do is to help with planting around the Macclesfield Town Centre in conjunction with the Macclesfield Guild. This is one site. This is a school site where they gave us 2 beds on the corner of their playing field. This was our very first site where a disused orchard was wanted resurrecting, and in exchange they offered us some vegetable beds there. So you can see the transformation that was made here, and also the vegetable beds, starting from nothing, we ended up with a very productive piece of ground. the Rowans as a care home in Macclesfield, and again starting with a greenfield site, we fairly quickly moved to some very productive beds which was opened by the Deputy Mayor of East Cheshire. The Rowans was also successful in winning the Community Garden of the Month in Garden Answers magazine, so that was our first national publicity, and it won us £350 worth of gardening equipment, so very useful. We weren't able to increase the number of allotments available in Macclesfield, various difficulties with the council's ability to increase the number of allotments. So instead we turned to encouraging people to share gardens, adopting the garden share scheme, and that's been very successful. We've built up 7 garden shares, very popular with elderly people because it gets them social contact as well as the pleasure of seeing their gardens being used. Curiously, we find it easier to find plots than people willing to take over the sites to cultivate them, which is really puzzling when there's such a long waiting list for allotments. In terms of stimulating the demand for locally produced food, we've built up this local food map where it shows farms, egg producers, farmers markets and the like. The idea is you can click on any of the little flags and it gives you more detail about that source of supply. Working with local farmers, we've started this Food4Macc Direct, which is a way of helping local farmers market their produce directly in the local community, and we've already started, we've done 2 deliveries of that, and we're all set to diversify now from lamb through chicken and on to pork, with the possibility of getting artisan bread making added to the offering. In terms of getting support for the work, we've had a lot of support from local organisations. Cheshire East Council gave us £500, Beach Hall School has allowed us to use their playing fields, Cheshire Peaks and Prains have helped us with photocopying and also allowing us to speak to their residents. The supermarkets have been quite helpful too, and I'll show you in a moment various donations, and we've had local garden centres been willing to give our members discounts. This is a summary of the support that we've had. Tesco gave us £1,500, Cheshire East £500, the William Dean Trust £500, and proceeds from car boot sales, Sainsbury's Bagpacking Day, plant sales, various diverse sources mean that we've raised something getting on towards £4,000 during the first 18 months. Also grateful to Apex, who loaned us their digital projector for our meetings. All Hallows School has helped us tremendously with printing and the use of the meeting room with fantastic facilities. Peaks and Plains have also helped us with printing and hosting. And we've had raffle prizes from Origi Bianchi, Marks and Spencer, Sainsbury's and the garden centres, Flora and Fairways. B&Q fairly recently gave us £250 of gardening equipment, and we've had a lot of good publicity from local media. To promote Food4Macc, we have this membership card which entitles people to a 10% discount in local nurseries. I'm afraid Alan Titchmarsh isn't really a member. And we've also got these t-shirts which we offer for sale. In I think it was November of 2010, we were very pleased to win the local radio station's Local Hero Awards. We won the award for social organisation, community organisation. For 2011 we've got a planned schedule of talks that runs over these topics, helping people growing food for themselves or working on the community gardens, and we're attaching to each session we're going to have plant or seed swaps or eggs or whatever, just trying to get people together to talk about food production and share their experience. So looking back to the aims of the Transition Town movement, as I said, we put Food4Macc in place to look after the local food production, but that left the rest of the Transition Town movement ambitions unaddressed. Fortunately, in December we were able to launch a new organisation, Mac 2020, which is the transition town movement for the town. It's only had a few meetings, but we've been very encouraged by the fact that a lot of different people have come out to attend those meetings, not just the people who are already interested in Food4Macc, but people who've got an interest with the broader issues of sustainability. And they've started another 7 working groups that are looking into the different aspects of sustainability. So, to conclude, it's been a pretty busy year for Food4Macc, and having gone over what has been done, I think we could be quite pleased with what's been achieved in such a relatively short period of time. Thank you very much.